Good morning and welcome to the Debrief. I'm Romina Puga. Today, Cory Booker announcing his run for presidency. The record-breaking cold is almost behind us, and we're live in Atlanta with the new controversy surrounding Maroon 5's Super Bowl halftime show. All of that and more, but first, here are your headlines.
The U.S. is pulling out of a Cold War-era missile treaty with Russia. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo making the announcement this morning.
We provided Russia an ample window of time to mend its ways and for Russia to honor its commitment. Tomorrow that time runs out. The United States will therefore suspend its obligations under the INF Treaty effective February 2nd.
The Roman Catholic Church in Texas has made good on a promise and released the names of nearly 300 priests accused of child sex abuse.
Since 2007, Texas has had no statute of limitations for sexual assault of a child, but most of the claims against these priests relate to behavior before 2007.
A walkway has collapsed at a school outside Johannesburg, South Africa. Officials say at least 3 students have been killed and scores are trapped in the rubble.
Because my heart goes out for the school because a lot of my friends were here.
Facebook and Twitter now say they've deleted thousands of suspicious foreign accounts. Facebook taking down accounts tied to fake information from Iran. And Twitter says it's deleted thousands of tweets it says were aimed at voter suppression in the U.S.
LA Lakers fans are celebrating the return of LeBron James. He missed 17 games after straining his groin on Christmas Day. He came back last night and scored 24 points to lift the Lakers over the Clippers, 123-120 in overtime.
Definitely ecstatic about being back out there with my guys and getting a great roll win versus a team that were, kind of, climbing, in the playoff race. But after being out 5 weeks, I'm feeling it right now. I wish I could click my shoes together and be home right now in my bed.
We start this morning with another high-profile name joining the 2020 race. Cory Booker choosing the first day of Black History Month to announce his run for presidency. Rick Klein is live in D.C. Rick, the field is getting more and more crowded. What can you tell us about this?
Cory Booker immediately comes in as a top-ranked contender. This is a guy that's been talked about as a potential presidential candidate for going back on 20 years now. He's only 49 years old. He is from Newark, New Jersey. He's going to be there later this afternoon. He's also on The View today talking about his candidacy. It's intriguing. There are only 2 African-American senators on the Democratic side. Both of them are now running for president between him and Kamala Harris. I think the key for Cory Booker is the theme that he talks about, unity, very Obama-esque. If you look at some of the things he says, he gives a terrific oration, a great life story. What kind of meat can he put on that bones in the coming weeks and months? And what you mentioned is a very crowded field.
And candidates are getting out to campaign this weekend. Who is visiting those key early swing battlegrounds?
Kirsten Gillibrand is out on the trail. She announced her exploratory committee a couple weeks ago. She's been a little bit overshadowed by some of the other candidates who've jumped in since then. We're also going to see Senator Sherrod Brown spending some time in Iowa over these couple of days. He hasn't announced yet, but of course, no one has to wonder much about his ambitions when he's deciding as a senator from Ohio to suddenly visit Iowa. And we're going to continue to see Howard Schultz, the former Starbucks CEO, who is thinking about running as an independent, out on the trail. But on the Democratic side, as this field grows, I think it's intriguing to see how people break through. A lot of them are bringing ideas on the progressive side of the aisle.
Thank you so much, Rick. Rick live from Washington, D.C. And sticking in D.C., I want to go to Karen Travers, who's live at the White House. Karen, President Trump is heading to Florida today for the first time since Thanksgiving. What can we expect?
Not a whole lot on his schedule this weekend, Romina. The president, this is the first time he's going to Florida, to his Mar-a-Lago club, since Thanksgiving. The president made a point of highlighting the fact that he missed his Christmas vacation, he missed his time at New Year's, he hasn't gone down on the weekends because of the government shutdown. He said he was sticking around town to try and negotiate a deal with congressional leaders while everybody else skipped town. So he finally gets to get out, as you can see, snowy winter wonderland here at the White House and head down for a much warmer spot there in Palm Beach, Florida. I think the president will spend a good amount of time this weekend on the golf course. And on Sunday night, he has a Super Bowl party at Mar-a-Lago with friends and members before coming back to the White House.
Karen, President Trump was saying the border negotiations are a waste of time. Is there any update on this?
This is the end of week one of what's a 3-week window for lawmakers to come up with a deal on border security and get it to the president, something he can accept. Last week, the president was really optimistic. He felt that there was a good chance that something could come out of these bipartisan talks. Well, the president is undermining, dismissing these negotiations, telling the New York Times and tweeting this week that they're a total waste of time. Lawmakers met for about an hour or so in the middle of the week. Now Congress is out of town for a couple days, so nothing is going to happen over the weekend. But I think the president's sending very strong signals that he is not expecting anything to come from Congress that he'll like. Nancy Pelosi, of course, as the House Speaker, is saying there's going to be no money for a border wall. She hasn't budged. The president hasn't budged. So we've got 2 weeks left now. Either somebody blinks or the president, as he's signaling very strongly, takes executive action to try and come up with some money that he can put toward building that top priority.
And Karen, President Trump claimed the intel chiefs were mischaracterized. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this was a bit of a curious stretch there from the president. So you had the director of national intelligence and the CIA director earlier this week up on Capitol Hill really challenging some of the president's assessments and statements on things like ISIS, North Korea, and Iran. There was a lot of coverage of that. The president didn't seem to like that coverage and then tweeted that the intelligence community was being passive and naive when it came to Iran. Even said that intelligence people, not naming names, but intelligence people should go back to school. Then it seems like he didn't like the coverage of that chapter of this back and forth with his own hand-picked intelligence leaders. And then yesterday the White House put on a big effort to show that there's no daylight between him and the CIA director and the director of national intelligence. He said that they told him their words were mischaracterized on Capitol Hill this week. It's a bit of a stretch. They were speaking at a hearing that was carried live on television. You could watch the entire thing. It's hard to see how their words were taken out of context.
And you've been talking to radio stations across the country this morning. What are listeners asking?
Yeah, that was a big topic this morning, the pushback yesterday from the president on this notion of differences between him and the intelligence community. There was also a lot of interest in that total waste of time comment from the president about the negotiations. The clock is ticking. We're 1/3 through this 3-week window to get something done. Nobody's moved an inch. It's certainly not looking really good at this point that the president's going to see something from Congress that he'll like.
Thank you so much, Karen Travers at the White House. Let's go now to Venezuela, where Cody Weddle has been covering the unrest all week for us. He's live in Caracas. Cody, what's happening there today, and what are we expecting this weekend?
Well, today things appear to be somewhat quiet, perhaps the calm before the storm here, as we expect more protests coming up on Saturday. The opposition and Juan Guaido, the self-proclaimed interim president here, have called for a march. We're still waiting for more details and to know where exactly they want to direct that march. It's very symbolic here where opposition leaders decide to direct protests and marches. And if they decide to direct it towards the Miraflores presidential palace, that will be a strong sign here that they're taking this very seriously and that they're going after Maduro.
Cody, yesterday authorities visited Guaido's home. What happened?
Right. These were the Special Action Forces. It is a unit of the National Police Force, and they are known to be involved in human rights abuses here. And they're known to be involved specifically in putting down protests with violence, specifically basically opening fire during nighttime protests. So it's a unit that is especially known to commit human rights violations, and they visited his home, according to him and his neighbors. They were asking for his wife and for his daughter. But they did not enter the home or raid the home. He's saying that it was an act of intimidation. He arrived there a bit later, and he said they need to act like men. They need to have an honor code, he said.
Okay, thank you so much, Cody Weddle, live in Caracas. Okay, now everyone take a deep sigh of relief because this cold weather is almost behind us. Whit Johnson is in upstate New York where wind chills are still below zero, but it is almost over. Whit.
Romina, this lake effect snow has been relentless. I mean, just take a look around me at this park here. The trees, the gazebo, the benches, everything completely smothered. It's up to my knees as I try to walk through it. Some parts of New York State got more than 3 feet. And this storm, the weather, the conditions have been deadly. From the Midwest to the East Coast, at least 15 people have died. We've seen the driving conditions extremely treacherous on the roads. Cars sliding off, getting stuck in the snowbanks, people having to dig themselves out. Now, the plows are out in full force trying to clear the roads, but they just cannot keep up with this level of snowfall. In New Hampshire, a state worker was badly injured when a chunk of ice flew off of a vehicle about 5 cars in front of it and then came crashing through the windshield. In Chicago, an amazing picture. The Chicago River completely frozen over as that city now reaches 80+ hours of sub-zero temperatures. Now back to the snow here, you see it coming down. It's been like this really for a couple of days now, almost nonstop in some parts of the Northeast. The consistency as it hits the ground is light and fluffy, but the problem is with these temperatures and the wind chill, that freezes into ice, creating those extremely dangerous driving conditions. So officials have been out there urging people to stay indoors through the weekend until those warmer temperatures finally provide some relief. Another major concern is the severe threat of frostbite. With these temperatures, with that wind chill, exposed skin can start to experience frostbite in just 30 minutes. Romina?
Okay, thank you, Whit. We now move to Ginger Z, who joins us with the forecast for the rest of the country.
Romina, thank you. We have so much to talk about, and finally, I can give this forecast and not be scared of everyone's reactions, because it's finally going to see some warming in a lot of places that have been just frozen in time. My parents in Michigan haven't left the house in 5 days, so some reprieve coming. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Still cold this morning, so sub-zero wind chill is still around as we head through parts of Friday. Might even not get out of that if you're in New England or the northern Great Lakes, but this is the last of it. So wait 24 hours and things will change. You may end up having just a little bit of snow or even some freezing drizzle depending on your location. So there's some winter weather advisories still from West Virginia right through Virginia and back into Kentucky. But there's the jet stream that's been stuck down in the south. Now it will go north and act as a fence, and that's going to keep that Arctic air away. It's going to actually invite some average and then above average temperatures. Check out Chicago. Remember, we were talking about 20s, 30s below when we were talking about wind chill, even 40s below, and now they're going to be 50 almost on Monday. Minneapolis, big swings happening there. They've even got some snow, so it may feel either way. 30s are going to feel great. And then you go west coast and you say, oh, it must be nice in California. Well, Malibu, California, you see Pacific Coast Highway, 14 miles of it was shut down because of mudslides. They had a ton of rain. In Ventura County, it was more than 2 inches. And there's more to come. I mean, this weekend is a big storm. So Saturday into Sunday is the big time. You've got winter storm warnings in the Sierra, flood and flash flood watches up and down the coast, and high wind warnings. The winter storm watches in the northern Rockies because of these storms. So let's go ahead and see what that means. Again, it's Saturday into Sunday where that big curl comes onto the shore. That counterclockwise rotation brings in the first storm. There's another one Sunday into Monday. What that means is by Monday you could end up with 6 feet of snow in the Sierra, up to 6 inches of rain along the coast. So we will certainly be watching for the potential there of having more mudslides or debris flow, and certainly some really good skiing conditions. Romina?
Thank you, Ginger. We now go to Chicago, where police are still investigating the photo of 2 potential persons of interest in the alleged Jussie Smollet attack case. Alex Perez is live there in Chicago. Alex, what's the latest with the investigation? Smollett just broke his silence. What did he say?
Well, Romina, he talked to Essence Magazine, and it turns out he wanted people to know. He said that he is okay, the first thing. And also he wanted to know everyone to know that he's telling the truth about what happened to him. He says he has hope, belief that justice will come. Now, I want to give you an idea of where I'm at. This is New Street. It's called New Street in Chicago's Streeterville neighborhood, and this is one of the streets that investigators are taking a very close look at. There are a lot of cameras on this street, but I want to bring your attention to this camera in particular right there at the corner on top of that light pole there. Investigators released an image of this block here where you see 2 people they're calling persons of interest, 2 possible witnesses that they want to talk to. Now, the attack that Jussie suffered, that he told investigators he suffered, happened within a 2-block radius between here and that Subway sandwich shop. It was about 2 a.m. He says he was leaving that Subway sandwich shop when he was attacked by 2 men who were wearing masks. He says they were yelling racial and homophobic slurs. And then he reported the incident to police shortly after that. But at this point, investigators have looked at that camera. They've looked at many cameras, and there are a lot of them in this neighborhood. And they still have not been able to track down any video of the actual attack. But they say they have about a dozen detectives working this case right now.
All right, thank you so much, Alex Perez, live in Chicago. The Super Bowl is just a couple days away. It's this weekend. We go now to TJ Holmes in Atlanta with the controversy surrounding Maroon 5 and their Super Bowl halftime show.
Hey there, Romina from Atlanta once again. We're just a couple days. Finally, can we get on the field? Rams versus Patriots. Finally, everybody looking forward to see this game. But one thing we can't shake, it seems still, is controversy over the halftime show. There's been controversy from the beginning, right? Before they ever announced who was going to be performing at halftime, there was controversy because some artists didn't want anything to do with it. Rihanna specifically came out and said, I'm not doing that show because of the way you all treated Colin Kaepernick. And then it seemed other artists still didn't want anything to do with it. Well, Maroon 5 was announced a month or so ago. They were criticized for having anything to do with it. Now, new controversy this week because the press conference for the halftime performer was abruptly canceled this week. That's a big tradition, kind of unprecedented for it to be canceled. Well, now Adam Levine has come out and said, no, that was not our call. He said, if you want to know why it was canceled, you're going to have to talk to the NFL about that. So it doesn't seem some of the criticism Maroon 5 got for canceling that press conference is warranted, according to at least Adam Levine. There are protests, or rather petitions out there online for people asking them to drop out, people asking them to take a knee. A lot of people suggesting they should make a demonstration of some kind at the halftime show. But at this point, the controversy over it just won't go away. We're a couple days away from the game. I'm kind of ready for the game to get underway, but now this halftime show is one of the most highly anticipated you can probably imagine. So that's the case here now. Maybe we should talk about the game at some point, Romina, but seems like some controversy keeps popping up.
And we can't talk about the Super Bowl without talking about beer. I want to go to our reporter Amy Holyfield from KGO, who's in Santa Rosa, California, for the release of a highly anticipated brew. Amy, people wait in line for 24 hours for this beer. What is it called, and is it worth it?
It's called Pliny the Younger. It is a triple IPA, so it has a very distinct taste. Some say it's very hoppy. Some call it one of the best beers in the world. And look at the line behind me. These are the people who will vouch for that. They love it. The first person in line got here at 11 o'clock in the morning yesterday. And now the tasting room doesn't open until 11 o'clock today. So that person's going to wait 24 hours. The next wave of people showed up around midnight. So they're going to put in about 11 hours to taste this beer. It's only available once a year for 2 weeks, and you have to come to the tasting room. It's not like you can go to the store and buy a 6-pack. You have to taste it here. You get 3 hours inside, and you're allowed to have 3 10-ounce glasses. They want to make sure that you leave here feeling good, but not drunk.
Have you tried it yet?
Now, are you asking me if I have had a drink on the job? Surely you're not asking me that, right?
Okay,
Next
well then
question.
when we're done, I need you to get in that line and try it, and then let me know if it's really worth it.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that an assignment? If that's an assignment, well, then I guess I got to do what I got to do.
Thank you so much, Amy. And lastly, this morning, another story out of Northern California, an unexpected impact from the government shutdown. A popular pristine beach there has some new residents, and they don't appear to be going anywhere. During the government shutdown, Drake's Beach, north of San Francisco, was all but closed to the public. As a result, these massive elephant seals moved in and gave birth to around 40 new pups. Now that the park is open again, the seals aren't budging. I wouldn't either. And park officials are urging tourists to stay away. They are working on a way to allow visitors to safely observe the seals, or maybe just lay out and tan next to them, because that looks comfortable. Thank you guys for watching The Debrief. I'm Romina Puga. Make sure to tune in for our political show, The Briefing Room, at 3:30. And also check out World News Prime at 8. And of course, remember to download the ABC News app. Have a great weekend.